Hi, my name's Jesse Marble, and this is a podcast we call The Long View. This is a podcast for builders and leaders, the people right now in the trenches who know that, yes, there is stuff you have to win today, but the whole game is not won in one quarter. This is for the people who are trying to build stuff that matters and the kind of long view that it takes to do that with excellence. We'll meet with founders, investors, athletes, all kinds of people who have built stuff that matters. And my goal is to always give a behind the scenes look of what was that like? What are the hard moments? What was it like dealing with rejection? What was it like when nobody bought the first version of the product, the second, the third, maybe the seventh version of the product? What it's like to pivot and iterate and build when it's hard. So thank you for joining me. I hope this time is meaningful for you. This is not about the latest tips and tricks. This is not hacks and highlight reels. This is guards down. On today's episode, I interview Robin Thurston, famously known for building one of the first apps on the iPhone App Store, a company called MapMyFitness. He ended up selling to Under Armour for hundreds of millions of dollars. He now runs Outside Interactive, which owns things like Outside Magazine. They also own Warren Miller for any of the ski movie junkies. They own dozens of technology properties in the world of fitness, sports, outdoor, healthy and active living. On this episode, I hope you hear a lot of fascinating inside details about managing the founder journey and burnout and how to pitch investors. Robin has an impressive resume and an impressive career, and I think you'll find a lot of joy in hearing him share what that was like from the inside. Robin, thank you for coming. I'm excited for our time together.
Jesse, so good to see you.
Let's first talk about your career arc. You've spent time inside big businesses. You've been a founder multiple times. Is there some kind of through line when you look back on your career across all of those things? What are some of the through lines that connect your journey?
I would say everywhere I've been, I was building something. You know, I don't care if that was my early days in finance. I don't care if that was, at Wellington or, certainly even as I think about being hired as a CEO at Helix. Obviously in starting companies, you're building, from the ground up. And so I would say sort of a love for building new things, building and trying to like reduce friction and make it easier on the, whether it be, and the user could be any number of parties, depending on where I've been. But I would say always something building. And I think when I wasn't building, I could only really think of one time I wasn't building. I actually was side hustling building because I wasn't building, So
Got the itch. There's always the itch.
Yeah, I was like, God, I got to go do that. And, and that was sort of the start of MapMy was I was at Wellington, but I was sort of working on it at night and I didn't know where it was going to go at first, but I was building and the last year I had at Wellington, I was in this role called an investment director role. And I was more like defending, I was part of the asset allocation team and I was out market defending portfolios and what we were investing in. And I didn't really feel like I was building. And that's really, to me, a lot of what drove the itch to start building MapMy was I didn't know if it was going to be a business or not, but I thought, oh, if I do this, sort of thing, I might get that itch, sort of scratch.
Okay, so you're moonlighting, you're building this while you're at Wellington. How much overlap was that? I think founders sometimes say, how much time am I kind of paralleling before it's time to jump?
Yeah, I mean, it started as, I went to Europe in 2005 and I sort of like, we were sitting around a dinner table and somebody said, oh, it'd be cool if I knew the roads, in Switzerland without you being here. And so I would say the very first part of the idea was pretty nascent. In other words, like I had written the spec, I had hired these engineers that I knew in Boulder, and I wouldn't say I was spending a lot of time on it because I was just like, well, let's just start building this and kind of see what it looks like. And then it was really when I met Kevin Callahan, the co-founder, and really started investing time in it. So I would say that it was probably a little bit over a year where I was sort of like trying to figure out, like, was it a thing? Was it not a thing? And then, I mean, it was a strange time, and it actually taught me an important lesson, which is, this was July of 2008 when the iPhone App Store launched.
Yes.
And we had two of the first 100 iPhone apps with MapMyRun and MapMyRide.
Wild timing.
And yeah, and then of course you had Lehman collapse in September. The markets were melting down, and I decided in the midst of that, because MapMy got featured by AT&T as one, like, on the advertising. So like MapMyRide got featured, and we just really started seeing the growth happen by November. What I realized was it didn't really matter what was happening in the world, because essentially the moment of catalyst for the iPhone App Store was then. It was like, if you were there and you were early and you were really on it, you were going to, like, and I'm not saying I knew exactly that at the time, but I definitely had this feeling like, oh,
timing was everything.
Yeah. And so it didn't really matter that the markets were melting down. I was like, I gotta go see if I can do this, startup / sort of mobile internet company,
So sometimes when we, in hindsight, think about success or even failure, I think there can be lots of categories, but there's like timing, there's idea or insight, and then there's execution. Certainly you nailed it on timing, but how do you think about that pie chart with MapMy? How would you score those three areas? Third, or why did it succeed in hindsight? How would you index those?
I mean, certainly timing. I mean, to this day, MapMy, which we bought back from Under Armour last year, is still doing, organically. I'm saying with no marketing, like, I'm talking no spend, is still doing 300,000 net new downloads. Registered users a month globally, right? So, it's like timing is everything, because, like, you're talking about, certainly north of probably 150, 200 million downloads of those apps since the beginning, right?
It's wild.
100 million registered users. So if you net that out, it's probably closer to 250 million to 300 million downloads, right? And so, but if you're not first in the store, you never get that built up momentum the way the app stores sort of work. So timing, I would argue it was a 10. You couldn't have done any better. I think we had real product market fit. I think that the use case of the phone and all of the things and benefits that you got out of using the GPS. I mean, I sort of joke today with people, like, it's hard to imagine today, Jesse, that we don't have GPS in our phone. Like, remember, we used to carry around these maps, and you'd be like driving in your car, and the person in the passenger seat would have it unfolded and be like, go right, it's just, it's sort of, it's sort of mind boggling, right? That we don't have this, oh, turn here, do this, whatever. And by the way, that could be for cars, that could be for bikes, that could be for scooters. It could be to, find your local restaurant while you're walking, whatever it is, and I don't, so I think, but the phone was good. I remember going to Silicon Valley in 2009 and going sort of up Sandhill and pitching MapMy. And by the way, I always joke with Brad Feld. Brad turned me down because he had already invested in Runkeeper. And everybody said the same thing. These were professional investors who spent a lot of their spare time riding, running, triathletes. These were very competitive people. And I remember going in and people, and we, I sort of joke, like I could send you the original, like what the app looked like. It wasn't like it was spectacular, but, and I remember these people just saying like, no one's ever going to run or ride with their phone. And I was like, everybody's going to run and ride with their phone. I don't know what
Really?
you mean. Like literally everybody. They were like,
That was the
absolutely.
common.
Yeah. It was like,
Really?
there's like, no one's going to run or ride with the phone. It's too heavy. It drains the battery, like all these things. And I was like, I don't know. Like it's got music, it's safety. It's like, I was like, I think it's like the perfect use case compared to the Garmin. Right. So, obviously that we got product market fit right. And then, the way I think about companies is a little bit, I mean, I have a bunch of like analogies that I use, but one is that execution's a little bit like momentum in a basketball game. So like there are periods where, and it has to do with like, do you have the right team? Have you designed the right product? Do you have the right customers, right? Like, these things have to all, but in the end, there's a little bit of momentum. There's a little bit of like periods where it just feels hard and like you can't get a basket.
Yes.
Like no matter what
Yes.
you do,
Yes.
you could be as good as you want to be, but you're still just
Mhm.
not getting it in the hoop, right?
They're
You're
not
just
falling
not
in.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then there are these times where momentum switches and you're almost like it's a little bit like you think you're amazing at execution. You're like, oh, well, I mean, send me to the masters. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and
Ball's going
I
in.
could, yeah,
Shots are falling.
I could use golf. I could use any
Mhm.
number of sort of like framings, but I would say that MapMy very much is remembered. Like when I talk to the people that worked there at the time, they now have a very fond memory because, Jesse, was a great outcome for everybody. It was a great outcome for
Mhm.
investors. It was a great outcome for the employees. I mean, the employees owned over 15% of the company, not including me, and so like it was a great, so it's easy to reflect back. Like, what is that saying? The winners always tell the historical view. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
sort of,
Right.
so I think there's a lot of fondness of, sort of the story and what happened with it and, the outcome of the whole thing. But I would say during the period, there was a lot of momentum changes. There was a lot of periods where sometimes it just felt very, very hard. I mean, I can definitely say there were at least 3 times. I mean, my wife knows this for sure. I mean, she was around for the whole thing. There was at least 3 times like I cut payroll out of our bank account, right? Like
Three different times.
yeah, I mean, we were that close sometimes. So when you talk about
Wow.
momentum switch, I mean, my wife likes to joke. She's like, yeah, I didn't really know if MapMy was going to make it. She was like, I don't know. She wasn't super
Oh,
sure.
she had
Um,
the inside, the pillow talk on how
yeah.
it's the
So I would,
non-PR version.
yeah. And so I would say that, you know, again, I feel like you can even be executing well, but momentum might not be going your way. And so I
Mm.
think that like the thing I always like, I feel like you have to just keep grinding. You have to just kind of keep shooting at the basket and you have to keep doing the work because you don't know when momentum is going to switch. You don't know,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting because if I look at outside right now, our momentum is like with us right now. Like we had a
Yeah.
great 25.
Yes.
We're off to a very, very good 26. And
Mhm.
I have a great team. I think they're executing very well. But I also would say that we have some good momentum right now. And look, I mean, there's been plenty of times where it didn't feel like we had good momentum, but it was just like, just keep doing the work, keep
But the
building
team
what you're
was
building.
there. You're still doing the same plan. It just didn't.
Yeah.
It was shots weren't falling in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you have um what do you do personally? Do you have, when you think mental health and just habits, and I mean, I know you're an athletic person, but
Yeah.
what are some of the habits you rely on when the shots aren't falling?
I mean, I would say I was like this as a cyclist too. I mean, the I mean, I probably raced, I don't know, at least 500 plus times in my life on a bike. And I would say that like I always put in the work. Like I always I trained when it was raining outside, snowing outside. Like I never took the easy button. Um and I sort of do that today. Like, I mean, again, I my wife is so awesome. I mean, she's really like been through it all with me.
Mhm.
But like she knows, like when I don't ride, like I'm kind of a miserable person. Like I'm a little bit grouchy. She actually calls me like daddy's sort of like acting like he's in a bear mood, like he's a little bit of a bear, and
Bear needs a bike ride.
the bear needs a bike ride, like
Yeah.
it's true. And so, I'm very consistent on the bike. Like I always find
Mhm.
time. Certainly better if I find time in the morning than if I find time at night. It's much harder for me at the end of the day than it is at the beginning. I kind of feel like it's paying myself in the morning. But for some other people, that might be, meditation. That might be, taking a walk. Like I do walk the dogs a lot. I try to do a couple of my calls every day on the phone instead of on Zoom.
Mhm.
Because we're fully remote pretty much at this point. Outside is so, certainly we're on Zoom a lot or on Google Meets. Um, but I think those are like that is the one thing, I think last year, I did over say 300 days of riding, right? And
Wow.
and I still
Mhm.
ride 7,500 miles a year, 8,000 miles a year.
Mhm.
And so I just think that that's one thing that I see a lot of founders not doing is sort of like thinking about their own personal health. I mean, I consistently see it, and in some ways, even maybe it's not just that they're not doing something that's good for them. I also see the other side, which is they tend to do things, maybe like drink too much or something else that is actually net makes it harder on them, right? Like, or
Yeah.
the other thing I'd
Yep.
say I've learned more recently. I would not say this was true during MapMy. I didn't sleep very well during MapMy. I worked a lot of late nights.
Mm. Mhm.
Now, like, I kind of got to get my sleep, Jesse. Like at
Yeah.
53, like I'm just like I got to go to bed by 10. Otherwise,
The
I'm
bear
just kind
needs
of
a
a wreck.
nap.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I think those things, sleep, some type of exercise, for some people that might be meditation. Um, I just think it's really, really important to keep the way I think about it is like to keep your stamina up so that when the momentum switches, you still have enough stamina to kind of like move through that positive period
Mhm.
versus get there and be totally burned out because you you kind of ran the engine too hot during the time when you didn't have good momentum.
That's a great perspective. It's not, yes, we want to be healthy because being healthy is important, but it's so that your tank is full for the hardest moment, or not the hardest moment. It's the opposite. It's seize the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing I'd say, like that I again I was very bad at, um, I'd say most of my career and certainly MapMy is just celebrating wins. That I feel
Yeah.
like I'm getting better at with
Yes.
the team, like really
Yeah.
just like stopping and being like, look, we, just had a great, year or a great moment or a great win with a client. Um, those moments are really important. They're really important to get the team sort of like realizing that they've sort of hit a new milestone and they can keep sort of moving from there. But man, at MapMy, I would say I was absolutely horrible about it. I mean, we sort of had this joke in Austin, like anytime something good happened, we would go to this place and ride the mechanical bull. But
Yeah.
when in retrospect, how many times was that? Maybe, I'm talking over like a 10-year period, maybe 4 times, maybe,
Yeah.
like it wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, people remember it because it was memorable.
But not often enough.
Not often enough.
What are the tactical ways to do that? I mean, is this like, okay, you're sending an email out with wins at the end of the week, or is this on Slack? You giving shout outs and all hands? Like, what do you think are some of the easy ways to do that?
Well, we do start off every all hands with shout outs so that people have a chance to sort of recognize their peers. But I think it's like a couple things. One is I would say making sure teams have budget to do things together, whether and if that happens to be your remote and you're not getting together often, but when you do, go back and celebrate those moments, like go through those moments and highlight them and make sure people are aware of them. Certainly sending an email. I know you follow me on LinkedIn. Like I tend to on LinkedIn try to celebrate whether it's great content that we've put out or, like we just did the show with Alex Hunold and I've been sort of like pushing the episodes of that show or, and trying to celebrate the team who put that together and put a ton of energy into getting that right. Or, let's say we got some big new features on Trail Forks or MapMy or Gaia, like making sure that those get out there. But I think it's not just, I think you got to be careful. It's not just the, say leader, like one leader. It's like, I think many leaders have to make sure that they're sort of flowing
Mm-hmm.
it down through the organization. Because I do think it's just super easy to go to the next thing. Like, oh, great. We got that one done. On to the next one,
Yeah. Yeah. A culture of celebration. It's a good point. Because if it's, hey, I'm going to do it and I'm the only one that does it, then that looks like just the Jesse thing. Or if you then sign it, kind of say, we're going to mandate you, whatever you sell, yeah, that doesn't work either. There's got to be this kind of groundswell in some form that we initiate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Okay, so let's talk about kind of the exit to Under Armour from MapMy. What was that experience like from culture? Now you're inside a big organization that sells apparel. What are some of the headlines, highlights, lowlights from the acquisition? Obviously, the financial performance, financial outcome for you and all the employees, special, once in a lifetime opportunity. What about the work and the culture once that acquisition happened?
Um, you know, Kevin Plank and I had like a really good relationship. Like we were, it's funny, we're like, I think we're born 5 days apart, literally. Like, so we were,
Hmm.
I think there was sort of a kindred spirit that we had from the very first time that we met. And, but it was, Under Armour was at the time, like when we were acquired, we were the first company that Under Armour ever had purchased Map My Fitness. And then we obviously did, we bought 8 other companies as part of the strategy and roll up of putting sort of that digital ecosystem together. And I was running e-commerce and, they it was like a magical moment at that time. And I would say because Under Armour was doing so well at that very moment. The team was special. I mean, like I have right now the CEO of when I was Jason LaRose was running e-commerce for me, and he was amazing. And then became president of North America for Under Armour after not too long after I left. Just the team that Kevin had put together. I mean, there were so many great personalities. It was like a locker room, and what I mean by that was there was this sort of like uh, it was a it was a competitive culture, very competitive culture, and I liked that. I mean, I grew up in bike racing, and I grew up in sports, and I liked that environment. But there were a lot of challenges of being like a non shirts and shoes business inside of a shirts and shoes business. We were trying to we built hardware. We integrated hardware into shoes as an example. We obviously had this, sort of massive investment that the company made on digital as a whole. And I think there were some people that should we buy MyFitnessPal? Was that the right acquisition? And like, that's money that we could have spent buying something else or doing something else, And so I think there was in a competitive culture, I think there was some of that going on. But I would just say, like, you know, the team at the time was just an exceptional group of people that were, I think executing and had a lot of momentum. Um, I think as I got towards the end of my 3 years there, I think there was there was sort of a realization that because the core business had some challenges, that it was going to be more challenging to invest and grow the connected fitness sort of piece of it. And for me, that was sort of the moment where it was like, okay, this probably isn't the right thing for me, and I need to go find something else that I can build. Um, but overall, I would say, it was, I don't know. I mean, I went to 2 Super Bowls when I was there, and, national championships and Final Four. And, for me, it was like, as a sports lover, it was sort of
Fun.
awesome. Just like, it
Just
was just
fun.
fun. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think the team had a lot of fun. I think, if you talk to the people that were really connected in and integrated into Under Armour on my team, they were having a lot of fun too, just being part of that. It wasn't without its headaches for sure, but it was a very unique time. And I just met a lot of great people while I was there. So like I will always reflect on it as sort of one of the, pinnacle moments of my life, because it was just such a great experience. It's hard for me to watch what they've gone through over the last 5 years, and where the stock is today. And, I still think they have a big opportunity, but it's just, the marketplace has changed a lot. There's so many small competitors, and they've had to really focus. It's part of why they divested all of the digital assets, really. And they've had to really zero in and focus on what's most important, and that's the shirts and shoes business.
So you bought MapMy back last year, right? 2025.
Yep.
Just give kind of behind the curtain, not in the transaction itself, but what are you excited about there, and some of the vision for that back now under the outside umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, I think we well, I mean, if I go back to, it took a couple years. Like, after they sold My Fitness Pal to Francisco Partners, I started pinging their head of sort of BD, this guy Lance, every month. Like, I would just ping him. I'd be like, "Hey Lance, what are you going to do with MapMy? What are you going to do with MapMy?" And so it took a while. They had this sort of framework that they couldn't sell it right away, and they weren't sure what they were going to do with it. And then finally they were like, okay, we're going to sell it. And, they kind of, I would say that they knew it was not in the right state to like sell it to anyone, and that probably I was the best person to sort of take it back on. And so I was super excited to get it. My co-founder from MapMy works at Outside, so I had sort of a team, and as well as some other MapMy engineers and leaders were at Outside, so we knew we had the team to sort of take it over and like pick up some of the pieces of what had to be fixed. Like, they had sort of taken membership out of it. They had taken challenges out of it. They had taken some of the sort of core fundamentals out of it. And again, I wasn't around for those decisions, so I'm not exactly sure why, but we kind of knew we had the team that could put it back together, or I'd say just build on top of where they were, because it's not like, I mean, the app was still adding, again, hundreds of thousands of users a month. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't growing. Um, so, but for Outside, we had Gaia, GPS, and Trail Forks. Those to me sat in sort of different markets. We kind of, Trail Forks kind of owns mountain biking, and Gaia was very good for backcountry planning, whether that be winter or summer. But we didn't have like a general activity platform. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we didn't have a
Yep.
place that was like, you could just log a walk or a run, or, I mean, technically you could log those things on Gaia and Trail Forks, but they weren't really used that way. Right.
Yep.
And so I was it sort of rounded out the portfolio of things that we felt like we needed to engage the customer in what we would call sort of day-to-day activation, like from inspiring them, like, now if we do something like, here are the top 10 hiking routes, you can quickly download one of the apps and then go do those hiking routes after you've read that on Backpacker or Outside or whatever it might be. And so it just kind of fit nicely into that. We have a great team. They're executing very well. The product is doing really, really well. It's still the largest mapping tool that we have. It does, on the magnitude of, call it 9 to 10 million monthly active users on the platform globally. Membership is back in a growth phase. Challenges, like right now, I mean, we have challenges running with a whole number of third parties that are doing paid sponsored challenges on the platform. And so, I'm really happy that it didn't just go somewhere to die, so to speak. Like, I'm glad they didn't just sell it off and, somebody didn't do something with it, so it's really nice to be sort of full circle, have it back. And, I think we have a good team working on it, and I'm excited about it. But the context is, it's sort of like the context I give about certain editorial brands is like, it is just one piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle the way it was when I was running it before. And then we sold to Under Armour, and then it was just a piece of the puzzle too. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's got a different portfolio. Yeah, my vibe is MapMy's got this, it's kind of, call it generalist fitness space compared to Gaia and Trailforks, which is have a more, call it power user
Totally.
ICP. Is that right? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go back. I want to talk about you as a founder. When you think about your leadership, I think one of the things we talk about all the time is superpowers. What are our strengths in surrounding ourselves with people who have different strengths than us? What would you consider your strongest trait, your strongest strength, your superpower as a CEO and founder?
Um, I think that my ability to create sort of a vision and get people rallied around that vision and to some extent that has to do with like being able to build and build a vision around product, you know. But I think that's always been something that I felt like I can do with a team of people, and I think people believe that I'm sort of able not only to take that to the internal team, but I've always successfully been able to take that to third parties, investors,
Mm-hmm.
partners,
Mm-hmm.
and really help them understand where directionally we're going. And so I think that's like, you know, I think it's so critical for founders to be able to do that, right? Like I always say, founders sort of have three jobs. Like there's sort of three core things that a founder has to be able to do. Um, you have to be able to, however you want to put it, not run out of money or be able to raise money. That's like you can't, you do
Runway,
not want to die. Yeah, runway. You
somewhat.
got to be able to not die because of runway, right? You got to be able to put the sort of vision together. You got to be able to bring collectively people along and tell that story about what it is that you're building. And then, I think it's the execution side about hiring a team that can basically do that execution, because you're not going to do it alone. And I mean, even in this world of AI where, everybody's talking about the single founder $1 billion, unicorn companies, right?
Yeah.
I still believe that you need people around you to help you execute. And so building that team to me is like it's a top three function of a founder, right? Um, Now, like I said, I mean, we could talk ad nauseum about what that might look like in the future, but I'm still pretty convinced that having a team around you is going to be critical.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so this vision idea, we often hear, especially later in somebody's career, they're good at casting vision, they're visionary, fill in the blank. And I see it in founders. And I think there's some of those skill sets I think I have personally as well. But I've never been able to answer the question, like, how do you develop the skill set of creating and casting vision? If you're 22, 25, what is the like tactical practice of that?
Uh, um, I think that the more you storyboard, and storyboarding could be in a whole bunch of fashions. It could be in presentations, it could be writing it down, it could be on a whiteboard. I mean, it could be chalk on the concrete, man. I don't care.
Hmm.
But like storyboarding and putting that vision again, and then the way I think you build the muscle is that you repeatedly go out and you kind of like without fear, without fear, you put that in front of people. You like literally you lay it out. Jesse, if I was coming to you to pitch, you'd hear me out, and you'd be like, like that's interesting, Robin. But like, here are the things that you might think about, and then I think the other part of the process is there are certain things like I've seen founders who over ingest what Jesse might say to them in a portfolio review, and then they're like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm changing the whole thing, and I'm
Hmm.
like, no, 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 no. Just realize that Jesse was not the right fit in person for you. Like there's someone else out there that if you really believe in your vision, there will be someone out there. And that's part of the reason, like, I mean, I don't know, Jesse. I mean, I joke, I bet you I've certainly raised a lot of capital in my life. Um, but I bet you I've done thousands of pitches, thousands, right? And
You got to swing the bat so many
yeah,
times.
and I like, somebody's like, that's a dumb idea. And I just walk out and I go, well, to you it is. It doesn't mean it's a dumb idea. To you it is, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that, you know, so I think that part, the muscle memory of like doing it over and over and really like continuing to lock in on your vision, to me is sort of a little bit like, and I think this is one of the reasons why I felt like I was good at it. It's a little bit like training for the race. It's like you got to just keep putting in the work, even though you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You just have to, okay, today I'm going out for this 50-mile ride. I'm doing this level of intervals. I'm doing this thing. I don't know if it's going to win me the race or not, but you know what? I'm still going to do it because I believe it's going to help me win the race. And I think the founders need to do that. They just kind of need to put in the you know, build their fitness, build their sort of articulation of the idea. And then I think ultimately when they meet that right person, that connection will happen. I just think it's so important. I just think you got to keep, you know, iterating and not getting discouraged by the iteration, but also like sticking to the plan if you really believe it is something that will change the world or differentiate or be a different product. You can't just waffle all the time. Like, oh, okay, fine, I'll go do something else. I'll do this. I'll do that. You know?
Yeah, I'm amazed by even some of our own founders that I think, yes, we have an opinion. We're your lead investor. We sit on your board, whatever that is. But sometimes I think they take it too much to heart. And it's a little surprising. What might be just a random, even like whiteboard off the cuff comment will all of a sudden carry more weight. It's something I've had to learn, is how to even communicate. Hey, this is like a level one. We do this level 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. Level 1, take it or leave it. Don't. You know, versus level 4 is like, I'm your lead investor and you should really listen.
That's good, because not all investors are good at that either. I mean, I've obviously had a lot of different investors sit on boards, and you know, some just make everything sound like it's gospel.
Yeah. We try to know, maybe a little self-awareness to know when our ideas are good or not. Okay, you talked about AI.
The other thing I was going to say though is, am I going to lose this thought? Yeah, sorry, I lost. I was just thinking that, like, I just think, again, I think you, going back to the training part, like, I just feel like, I know what I was going to say. The swings that you take. So, like, I'm using examples. So, you know, one of the greatest, like, this is like one of my favorite founder lines of all time. Okay. So Jeff Bezos is standing up on this stage. They've launched the Fire Phone, and it's a disaster, Jesse. Like billions of dollars down the tubes, right? Down the tubes. Like, they manufactured this phone, thousands, hundreds of thousands of them sitting in warehouses waiting to go people, and no one's buying it. No one wants it, because iPhone and, you know, iOS and Android dominate the market, right? So, and somebody in the audience, some employee is like, God, Jeff, why did we do this? Like, this is such a huge miss. And Jeff says, well, if you think this is a big miss, wait until our next one.
That's good. Yes, that's good. We're going to do it, and we're going to fail again. We're going to fail.
Yeah. Again. But we might even fail, like, on a bigger scale. But the point being is that I feel like founders sometimes don't, like, in some ways they're so worried about whether it's like what their investors said, or they're worried about taking more risk because it could fail or whatever, but then they don't really swing for the fences. They don't really go after the things that really could make a huge difference with the company. And oh, by the way, the larger you get on your path, this is why larger and larger companies have hard time taking swings because and by the way, if you have this is like one of my key theses around when private equity replaces management, why I think it's such a big mistake. If you are like the analogy to me of being a hired CEO in a business, you were recruited by the private equity firm or the venture firm to take over the business. It is like being an index fund manager. You are not going on outside of one standard deviation. Like you are going to keep the business in a framework because you're getting a check. You know there's sort of a certain outcome based on the size, but like you're not going to take any big risks. So I'm always like telling founders, like if you see something and you really believe in it, even if it's going to crush the company, like go for it because no one else is going to do it. None of your team is going to do it. They're not going to take that much risk. But you as the founders should be taking that level of risk. Like if I was sitting like on the other side, like I wasn't, maybe, I don't know, maybe someday I will be an investor. I spent my first 15 years in finance, right? Maybe someday I'll be a venture capitalist. I don't know. But like if I was sitting on the other side of the table, I would be specifically looking back at the founder, asking myself, are they taking enough risk?
Are they swinging? Yeah.
Are they swinging?
Because they're the only ones that can.
No one else will. No one else will. No one on their management team will. If the venture firm or the private equity firm replaces them, that CEO never will. They will not take that much risk. They might execute the existing plan really well, and that might end up being a home run because the initial idea was so good. But I'm saying the risks outside of that spectrum, they will not.
Something truly unique, something truly disruptive is going to come from a founder.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a great
not
point.
all founders. That's the point I'm making is like when I talk to founders, I'm like, are you taking enough risk? Are you?
Big swings, home run. Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber swings for the fences always. The Schwarbomb.
Exactly. The Schwarbomb. Yes.
Schwarbomb.
Yes.
Okay. Pivot in the conversation, but something Colorado is excited about. We've been a part of for the last few years. Outside Days coming up in May. I just want to give you a chance to talk about that. We've been involved the last few years at Wildwood. We're on the selection committee for the pitch competition. That's part of it.
Yes, thank you.
It has been a cool addition to the Colorado scene in many ways, but tell us about Outside Fest, what you're excited about for this year. By the way, Death Cab for Cutie, literally one of my favorite bands of all time. I am super excited. Friday night, May 29th, I will 1000% be at that concert.
I will be there too, I promise. So we rebranded this year to Outside Days, really in our mind to celebrate, this 4 or 5 days of people just being outdoors and really connecting with all of the things related to the outdoors. And, that includes music because obviously all the stages are outside and we have a great lineup all 3 days. We actually added a third day of music this year. So we added Friday night to the music venue. We've added a travel sort of track to the B2B event, and we've added an event director track to the B2B event. And then, we obviously want to use the B2B event as a place for the industry, for the outdoor industry to be able to network and come together and bring their teams together. And very big partners. I think this is like one of the largest REI gatherings because REI is our title sponsor, and certainly Jeep, who's our big auto partner, they're bringing a big group of people. Brooks is bringing a huge group of people that will be at the event. For us, what was missing in the outdoor industry was sort of a South by Southwest for the outdoors. Something that had was consumer facing, but still there were opportunities to connect from a B2B level. The Pitch Fest, and day is really about also bringing startups into this ecosystem and getting more people excited about wanting to be in sort of the outdoor active lifestyle space. But really building something that had all of the sort of formula, the sort of, secret potion around connectivity, community, that has, music, film festival, ideas from, obviously very, well-known influencers and athletes and business people, and then experiences like where can you, go to, there's a climbing wall and a kids area, and there will be, saunas and cold plunges, and there will be, other, there's a bike park, and there will be a drive track for Jeeps, so you can actually like
That's cool.
experience,
That's super
driving,
cool.
Jeep in the outdoors. And so, it was really about bringing all of that together in a way that, just allowed people to really celebrate the outdoors. And I think the B2B events that have existed in the past, I think those are and will continue. Outdoor retailer obviously changed a lot. Switchback is out there. There's a number, there's still a number of events. But we felt like there had to be something that was sort of a cultural moment for the outdoors. And we have all these great brands. We think it's an amazing industry, and we think there's an amazing purpose behind it. And, we just love to see how consumers engage with it. And it's always just for the audience, it's always the weekend after Memorial Day. Starts, sort of late Wednesday, and then the consumer event starts on Friday and runs through Sunday. And, right now we're well ahead of schedule on ticket sales. We're expecting somewhere between 11 and 15,000 people a day for the consumer event. And, the B2B event will have thousands of people from the industry there. So, we're excited for it to get here and, happen for the third year. And just from a business perspective, talk about a big swing, Jesse. Like when we started, it was very much a marketing thing. But here's a business that, off of, the great brand that Outside is, and the history and the legacy of it, that, we're talking about a business that's gone from 0 to 10 million in 3 years. So it's a lot of growth very, very quickly for a completely new business. And I remember when we started it, there were a lot of questions about like, is this the right thing to do and places to put your resources? And, I was like, yes, I think this is it.
You're here to say you're happy with the progress. I mean, yeah, I was actually in Austin for South by. Was it 2 weeks ago? And there's just something that it does to the town that, yeah, it's had its ebbs and flows as an experience through the years, right? But the city comes alive, and that's something that as a Coloradan, I get excited about too.
100%.
Okay, one final question. Yep. This is just a meta idea. What is one thing you're bullish about that might surprise people in the business world? What's one thing you're bearish on that might surprise people?
Let's see. One thing I'm bullish on. I'm a builder, and I'm building a lot myself right now. Like I've already written 4 apps myself, using Claude Code. I'm really excited about how quickly you can iterate from idea to full developed concept, right? The speed at which we're going here. And so I'm really bullish on what this means for every department, like every part of our ecosystem, like whether it's, iterating on something for finance, or iterating on something for HR, or, I just think if you have an idea right now, it's pretty easy versus like what I'd call the old process of like starting on the napkin, going to the requirements document, trying to convince people that what's in the requirements document is worth writing software for, like, so I'm pretty excited about idea to, sort of 0 to 1, and then, like what I'd call the versioning. Like there's a saying that, frankly, Kevin Plank used a lot, which was like version 2 will always be better than version 1, and version 3 will always be better than version 2. I think this is a pretty exciting time right now for builders. And so I'm really bullish about that. I think on the flip side of that, what I'm bearish about is I think human creativity and being part of this is really important. So I'm a little bit bearish on all this talk about, sort of less people in being replaced by, whether it's agents or, the process. Like I would prefer to think about it, and at least the way I feel like we're trying to structure it outside is I prefer to think that these are they're leverage points for the team that we have today, rather than thinking about that, it means a lot less people, right?
Right.
So we're trying to educate, we're trying to get the right tools in front of people, we're trying to, again, push them to take, sort of risks and chances around using it. But I just wish there wasn't so much conversation about that. People aren't needed, because I think people are amazing, and I think, like,
Amen.
I love to be around
Yeah.
people. It's like I told you, I just got back from this event where I was with a bunch of other founders, and like I just get a lot of energy from that. Like I
Same.
leave and I'm
Absolutely.
like, oh my God, that's so cool, and that's so cool, and that's so cool, and look at that
Fills the
idea.
bucket.
And, right. So I don't know.
Claude's not as energizing. Claude is great.
No,
Claude Cowork's amazing. It's not as energizing.
Cowork's amazing. Yeah, it's helping me. It's helping me, but it's not really, it doesn't do that same thing for me. Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. There's about 100 questions that ran through my mind that we didn't get to. All the prep questions I sent you, we got to a third of them.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll come back. Yeah,
Robin,
anytime.
good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks, Jesse.